All right, I will call to order the plan meeting on February 15th at 6:30. First up on the agenda is approval of minutes. Any changes at all to anything?
I'd move approval.
Second.
Moved by Ed, seconded by Randy. All in favor, say aye.
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 And opposed, nay. All right, that is approved. Next is public appearances for non-agenda items. I believe everyone is here for an item on the agenda, but I can wait for 2 seconds. All right, sounds like everyone's here for an agenda item. That's good. Agenda review, any changes we need to make at all? All right.
Could I introduce one more item? Could we have an introduction?
We will do introductions now or at the end. We'll do introductions for sure, though. All right. Then going on to the first item is the certified survey map request, CS 243222. I think we have Adam here to come up, and if you want to tell us kind of what you're doing real quick, that would be great.
I represent Ed Parrish, who's also in attendance tonight. Ed has 2 lots on Cyene Road, and they are both just described currently as meets and bounds description. He wants to combine the 2 lots so that it is 1 lot for future sale to children to clean up title.
All right. Excellent. Staff report.
Yeah, so this is a pretty straightforward lot combination. The property over time was developed as though they were basically one residential parcel. So you can see that there's a garage located on the northern parcel that's associated with the primary residence. So I'm just combining the 2 lots into one via a certified survey map. And we did just want to make one correction on the memo. So the memo said that no dedication of right-of-way is required, and that was just an error, that they are dedicating additional right-of-way on South Cyene Road. And then for staff, we did want to amend the conditions of approval just to add a 3rd condition, that the applicant shall dedicate sufficient right-of-way for final approval by the Director of Public Works, just to make sure that the error that we had in the memo doesn't impact what's on the certified survey map. So we'll just double check that before we actually get the certified survey map signed.
All right. Questions, comments from Planning Commission?
I have a question. Is that encroachment due to it being done by meets and bounds the first time? There's a 1'6"
The
dimension
driveway,
to the building. Pardon me?
the driveway or the encroachment on the building
The building.
setback?
The building. Is,
I can't say for certain, but I assume that might be the case.
I don't know if that's worth noting or for future.
Yeah, we have in the past put a note on a certified survey map stating that like any future structures will comply with the zoning district, but it's not a requirement.
Could we do that then?
Sure, yeah. So a 4th condition that a note shall be added that all future structures shall comply with the zoning district.
May I clarify that a little bit?
Sure, yeah.
So if something catastrophic were to happen to the existing structure, could it be rebuilt in its current place on its foundation? If a car went through the garage wall, could it be replaced in kind, or are we talking only new structures?
Yeah, so my understanding is if there's like a random occurrence, I guess, like a car drives through the house, they could repair the building or reconstruct it. Yeah.
All right. Any other questions or comments? Or a motion?
I move to approve CS 2432-22 with the 4 conditions as noted.
I'll second.
Sent by Rich. All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you.
And opposed, nay? Thank you. All right, that's approved. All right, next up, we've got a number of items for MG&E, and we've got a couple of people here, both John and Michael. Zach, before we get started, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I'll be recusing myself for 5B through 5E.
All right, thank you for that. And if you want to come up, John, and tell us what you're doing, I think Michael's with you too, that'd be great.
So, good evening. I'm John Drury with Madison Gas Electric Company.
And I'm Mike Lasher with MG&E as well.
So, MG&E is installing AMI advanced metering infrastructure at 2 of our substations, the Sain and Oak Ridge substation, and we're amending our conditional use permits at both locations to install the AMI equipment, which basically is at the Sain substation, it's a 105-foot utility pole that we'll be putting an antenna on top of to communicate with our metering system. And at the Oak Ridge substation, it's a 74-foot pole with an antenna for a total of 83 feet at both substations.
All right. Staff report?
Just pull up the site plan so everyone's familiar with the location. So this is just off of Sain Road. So Sain Road's here. It's a pretty long driveway, and then the existing substation is located quite a distance from the right-of-way. You can see the pole location will be at this corner of the existing substation. The nearest property line is 175 feet, so no concerns with the height of the pole and the distance to the property line here. And then just for a point of clarification, so even though they are constructing a monopole with an antenna on it, they do not fall under our telecommunication facilities permit ordinance because they are not a telecommunications provider. They are a utility, so they're using the antenna to communicate between utility infrastructure that is stationary and not mobile, and they're not providing a service, like selling that service to customers. So in speaking with the city attorney as well, she concurred with staff opinion that they do not need a telecommunication facilities permit and that they are just amending the conditional use permit for their utility use and then getting the ADR to actually construct the tower itself. So I just want to point that out. So no concerns from staff. We do have 3 conditions for the conditional use permit and 3 conditions for the architectural design review.
All right, before we get to planning commission, I need to open the public hearing. I do not have anyone from the public that's here to speak though, so seeing nothing, I will close the public hearing and open it up to discussion on at least the first 2 items, the conditional use permit and ADR. Ed?
Could this pole be used for co-location of telecommunications if there were a need for that in the area?
No. That was one of the things we put as far as one of the conditions. We would not be using it for anything besides the utility metering.
But I mean, this type of pole could not, I mean, in the future, could not be used for that. There would not be a possibility that.
No.
Okay. And why is that?
Because it's solely for our purpose of our use, and it's not something, it's being designed and installed strictly for this AMI side, but it's not something, and it's one of the conditions we put in there, just because it's sort of the original, what Lisa did a good job of laying out is it's for utility purposes and
Right.
for telecommunications, so we wanted to be clear that we were never going to go to telecommunications.
And it sounds like, Lisa, if I heard you right, would it be a separate kind of permit, separate request if there was that possibility in the future? Like,
Yeah, so there is a condition that the monopole shall only be used for utility purposes. So MG&E could potentially, I guess, put it on an additional antenna if the need for their metering system. But if, we wouldn't, because of this condition, we wouldn't allow a wireless communication company to put an antenna on.
But if they applied for a permit to do that in the future, we could consider a TFP and a conditional use, or does this preclude that?
If a telecommunications provider submitted an application.
Yeah, wanted to,
Yeah.
lease,
Sure.
pay them something to lease the pole and put it up there because it was needed in the area. I'm just wondering if we're preventing that from happening because,
Sure.
otherwise you just got poles all over the place. I mean, this is the whole reason why we have co-location of poles.
Yes.
you know,
So one of the reasons that We also were talking about the telecommunication facilities ordinance with MG&E, is that they did not want to co-locate facilities on their tower, I believe for primarily like security purposes, and it doesn't work with the equipment. So that was one of the concerns, is that they were not interested in co-location.
Oh, so it actually creates a problem for your equipment.
Well, and actually, because it's inside of one of our electrical substations, the federal code prohibits us from doing that and bringing somebody else inside there.
Okay.
Got it. Thank you. All right.
Other questions or comments? Or a motion?
Are we taking the conditional use separate from the ADR?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll move to approve conditional use 2430-22
Second?
Sent by Ed,
with the three conditions.
okay. I'm assuming you're okay with that, Ed? Yeah, okay. All right, all in favor of approving with conditions, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, nay. And then abstention?
Abstain.
Yep, abstain from Zach. All right. ADR,
You're looking for a motion?
yeah, motion.
All right. Motion to approve ADR 2961 South Saline Road with the three conditions listed.
Second.
Sent by Emily. All in favor, say aye.
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 And opposed, say nay. And then abstention?
Abstain.
Abstain from Zach. All right. On to the next part of this is again, conditional use permit and ADR. And do you want to speak to this one?
Sure, it's virtually the same rationale and technology. It's just the pole is a little bit shorter in this location. The actual pole, it's a wooden pole, it's 73 feet high with a tower or an antenna on top that takes it up to I believe 84 feet. And again, the same application, same reasoning as the previous.
Any additional staff report?
Yeah, I'll just provide some context for anyone following along at home. So this one's on South Fish Hatchery Road, just south of or across from Irish Lane. So we have the property line here along South Fish Hatchery Road. This is also set back quite a ways from the property line. It's 100 feet from the bike path. It's 86 feet from the southern property line, and they did reduce the height of the pole to ensure that the height of the pole was less than the setback. So no concerns there. The same three conditions for the conditional use permit and the ADR.
And if I'm correct, the southern boundary is the Veterans Park, correct? Or city property?
Yes, the Veterans Park. Yeah, city property.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. First, I'll open up the public hearing real quick. I don't have anyone again from the public to speak to this, so I can close the public hearing and open up to questions if there's anything additional from the Planning Commission. Or a motion.
I'll move approval of conditional use 2429-22 with the three conditions as noted.
I'll
Second.
second.
Submitted by, I'll give that to Rich. All in favor, say aye.
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 And opposed, nay. And abstention?
Abstain.
Abstain from Zach. All right. And one more.
I'll move approval of ADR for 2413 South Fish Hatchery Road with the three conditions as noted.
Second.
Submitted by Randy on this one. All in favor, say aye.
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 And opposed, nay. And then abstention?
Abstain.
And Zach abstain. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
On to F, rezone request for, let's see, do we have David Gevers and Kirk Wodrowski online for this rezone request? And go ahead, gentlemen.
Hi, good evening. Can you guys see me okay?
We can.
Okay, great. Thanks for having us tonight, and thanks for accommodating this virtually. I really appreciate it. So we're here tonight with the GIP, myself, David Gevers. I'm Vice President and Director of Development for EJ Plesko and Associates, Inc. And I also have with us our architect and civil engineer, architect Kirk and civil engineer Bruce, and they'll speak in just a minute. We came before you guys a little bit ago presenting this in our pre-application meeting. Since that time, we've had a neighborhood meeting, which frankly nobody showed up for, except for our alder, which was great, and Mike Zimmerman from the city. So the meeting went well, very well received. We've obviously had lots of conversations, Julie, about this project, and with Mike in the city. As we talked about at the pre-application meeting, we really view this as kind of the next step. This is the next iteration for introducing different housing options, new market rate housing options, rental for this neighborhood. This neighborhood, we've invested a lot of effort and time since we took it over out of foreclosure in 2005, and it's been a really fantastic project to work on, actually, to see how the neighborhood has evolved and how it's improved. And we view this as just the next step in this process. So right now we have the Pines and the Fairways, which we consider sort of naturally occurring affordable housing. It's a great value for our residents. They're thriving there. We've invested over $7 million in capital improvements in those properties, and both properties right now are at about 98% occupied. Highline was sort of the first stage of redevelopment here, where we did a Section 42 low-income housing tax credit project. It's 160 units of affordable senior housing. So again, it's subsidized for seniors, and that's been a great addition to the neighborhood as well, and very well received. And we're just about full over there as well. This project, which you'll get to see sort of some of the updated imagery for, and hopefully have seen the GIP package for, is a market rate project. It's an opportunity to introduce market rate options and new housing stock on this side of Fish Hatchery. It's going on a 5-acre parcel, which is currently vacant. It originally had about 5 of the old style, garden style apartment buildings there, which we tore down previously. So again, this is a great opportunity for some infill redevelopment in a neighborhood that needs more investment like this. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Kirk, who is our architect on this, to sort of walk you through the plans and the design concept.
Thank you, David. As David mentioned, my name is Kirk Pedrowski. I'm with JLA Architects, and we're working with, obviously, David and Bruce with D'Onofrio on this project. Are you guys able to share the screen, or do you need me to do that? Okay. So as mentioned earlier, we've already presented to the city once for the pre-GIP. We think it was pretty well received by everybody. This is along Traceway Drive, and as David mentioned, right across from the Highline property, and going to be next to the new City Hub Park project that you guys are putting together. The building is, in the GIP, it's 178, but we're probably about 180 units, I think, that we can get in here now. It's going to be a mixture of studios, 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, and 3 bedrooms. The unique feature of this particular project is that if you look at the light gray area that's in the front there, along both sides of Traceway and along the park, those are going to be townhome units, so 2-story walk-up townhome units that will be, as you can see, clad in brick, which will kind of give that old town kind of feel to it. Blanking on the name of this, David, help me out. The
brownstone,
yeah, brownstone. Sorry,
walkable feel. Yeah, no problem.
So kind of that brownstone aesthetic to it, and each one of the units will have its own entrance that is, like we said, walkable or a walk up, even around the sides of the building too. The site slopes pretty severely from the northeast down to the southwest. And as a result, we don't really have to go underground too much with our parking. It'll be partially underground just because of the slope itself, but it'll basically act as a retaining wall. So right between these two buildings here, you can see there's an entrance that'll go into the parking garage. That is, so it's a drive-through entrance instead of being a drive-under entrance. Yeah, you can see the road that we're cutting through there. And then on the second floor above the parking structure will be this rooftop plaza, which will be a mixture of green areas as well as some paved areas for exercise and relaxing and communal activities that will take place in there. The building itself is 4 stories. That's with the first level parking. And then along that first level parking is also the first level of the townhomes. Then we have a second story, and then we step it back for the third and fourth stories along Traceway, but it's full height on the north side of the building. There are currently 93 stalls of surface parking and 180 parking stalls underneath. So that should give us, I think it's like about a 1.54 parking unit to parking ratio. And then we've accommodated now, it's not in the GIP itself, but we've been able to accommodate for the 0.5 bike parking stalls per unit as well. I don't know if there's any questions or if I've answered everything about this project so far.
If you're ready, we can have staff to report, and then we'll go to questions after that.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Yeah, go ahead, staff report, please.
Sure. So I would say that generally the project is consistent with what was presented at the pre-application to Plan Commission. Just a couple of, I think, minor changes is that the impervious surface ratio was reduced to the standard of 65%. So I know there was some discussion from Plan Commission about wanting to see that reduced rather than increased. So they did address that comment. The parking ratio is consistent with what was discussed at that time. The density is similar as well. And then they did have that neighborhood meeting on February 4th, although it was not well attended by neighbors, but they did hold the meeting. I think just a couple of things we wanted to point out is that there were some staff comments about generally just improving the pedestrian access from like the parking lots to the sidewalks, making sure that they're meeting the ADA requirements as well. And so we'll definitely want to see that addressed, I think, as a part of the architectural design review. So just wanted to point that out. It appears that they're planning to address the bike parking minimums with their SIP and ADR submittal if the GIP is approved. And then we'll also need them to just provide an updated fire access plan. So I think the one that was previously provided wasn't using the dimensions for our fire trucks for the city of Fitchburg. It was using different dimensions. So we'll just need to ensure that the parking lots can accommodate adequate fire access. So I don't know if that will impact the site plan at all going forward, but I wouldn't expect any drastic changes. We can discuss, parkland or any other questions that might come up from Plan Commission if needed. Otherwise, we can kind of continue to discuss that as the project moves forward. And then staff recommendation is for approval as drafted in the PDD GIP ordinance included in the packet. And I'll just show that briefly as well. So it's pretty standard GIP ordinance. So here we note that the approved use is for 35 units per acre, the height 4 stories, ISR 65, parking of 1.5, and then the general setbacks. We know that the park dedication will be finalized with the SIP, and they plan to follow the Chapter 26 signage standards. And just as a reminder, these standards can change a bit from the GIP to the SIP if they get more specific with their setbacks or things like that, but it would be expected to be generally consistent with this. And that's all.
All right. First, I will open the public hearing. I do not have anyone from the public here that wishes to speak, so seeing no one from the public, I can close the public hearing and open up to questions, comments from Planning Commission. Rich?
When I looked at the packet, there were no 3 bedrooms. You mentioned 3 bedroom. How many 3 bedrooms are you going to have in there? Or how many are planned?
There are 15, and they're all part of the townhome units.
So the wraparound units.
Because you've got close proximity to a school, I believe, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I know we are right by Aldo Leopold. That's correct. Yep.
Additional questions, comments? Stephen?
I think a lot of our comments 2 months ago were around the, we'd all like to see some owner occupied in this area. Those townhomes seem ripe for it. There was some discussion that it's more difficult, more expensive. I don't know what all the comments were, but I don't understand that when there's 20, 30 offers on every open house on the market right now. So could you walk us through why there aren't any owner occupied units in this plan?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So generally speaking, let's see here. I don't know if Scott, oh, there we go. Sorry, my screen was acting weird there. There we go. So yeah, so generally speaking, so to develop condominiums, there's a very different financing that goes into developing condominiums, much different than apartments or other residential. With condominiums, typically you need to have 50% of the units spoken for with hard cash deposits, non-refundable cash deposits, prior to the bank actually lending the money to complete the construction. To accomplish that, even though, yes, I agree that the housing market is very hot in a neighborhood that's clearly in transition, is very difficult. You're asking people to come and invest obviously a lot of money into an area that is in the process of sort of reimagining itself and reinvesting in itself. So we just don't feel that that's feasible at this time. It might be something that is possible in the future, but not with this project. That's sort of the I guess the answer. It's more of a financing driven issue, but it's also a development issue, right? Because we're not condo developers, we're not home developers, and so it's really not, that's not our specialty.
Other questions or comments? I have one, I guess, for staff first. In terms of, it says in here that they want to use parkland credits from other properties. Is that something that we would tackle right now? Because I know that's not something that staff agrees with. It's something that I don't agree with, to take parkland credits from other property and use it on this property. I think that we need to keep the property itself with what's there, and it just creates a headache for future staff to try and figure out where the credits are or aren't, if they're not with the right property.
Yeah, so generally speaking, I don't think that parkland dedication needs to be finalized with the PDD GIP. Like typically we see that with the SIP ADR application, but I can comment on that just since you've asked the question. So the applicant is proposing a kind of combination of potentially transferring what we refer to as parkland credits from a parcel to the north, just right to the north of this one, where they had torn down 2 buildings. And they would like to say, like, since we already had those units there, we kind of would subtract them from this new development. And we've only, I think, and from my knowledge, really done this with the Highline project a couple of years ago, where they actually took units that were on the parcel we're discussing this evening and transferring those to the Highline project. And that, at the time, was a policy decision made by council to allow this scenario. So it's not something that's outlined in our land division ordinance for parkland dedication, and it really is a policy decision to allow the transfer of credits between properties. So I think staff opinion is that we would look for direction from council to allow that through like a resolution that is considered by council and adopted by council, if they were to proceed with that kind of an approach. And that's, I think, from the recommendation of the city attorney as well, would be to follow that. So I would ultimately leave that to be a policy decision for council if they choose to do that.
Reading between the lines, we shouldn't have done it before since it was the only time we did it, but that's more of a future decision, I guess, it sounds like. Okay. All right.
I agree with Stephen's concern with regard to getting some owner occupied into this neighborhood. And, you know, the redevelopment, with the senior housing project across the street is very, very nice. And there's a lot of nice development going on in this immediate area. So to me, it doesn't seem like it's that big a stretch to expect that people would look to purchase condominiums, particularly kind of that brownstone style. And I think this is one of the things we can talk about when we talk about PDD zoning. I mean, this is something that we don't grant for every project that comes along. We grant it because it benefits the city and the project, that it makes a better project. And sometimes it needs to solve problems in the neighborhood or start to go in that direction. And I really think that this is one of these situations where there needs to be some give and take if we're going to look at PDD zoning. And if we want to see some owner-occupied properties in this neighborhood, I think this is the place to start. I think this would be a really good opportunity for it. Now, I don't know, maybe there can be some creativity as to whether they're owner-occupied immediately, whether they're built to be condos and sold down the road. I mean, I don't know. I guess that could be open for discussion, but I agree with Stephen that I think we should be looking for that at the site.
Rich?
I see your point, but got to remind ourselves, we're looking at specific implementation now. The general implementation is come and gone. I think.
No.
We have not provided
That's not true.
zoning to the site yet.
In December, that was just our feedback.
That was just
a conference.
feedback.
I don't know if I can speak
Yeah, go
to
ahead. Yep, go ahead.
Okay. I would just like to say, as someone who's been intimately involved with this neighborhood for over 15 years and have done a lot to invest in the community, both through actual capital investments, but also through investing in our own private community centers that we provide for free of cost to different groups, and working closely with the schools and the social workers for the schools for a very long time, and a lot of community groups as well. I think to hold a standard like that to a project like this, which is seeking to really reinvest in this neighborhood, which really needs it, is unrealistic and not fair, to be honest. There aren't for sale housing requirements for the other apartment projects that are being approved in other parts of the city. And to hold that standard in this neighborhood, where clearly there's an affordability component here, where a lot of our residents can't afford for sale housing. And here we are trying to offer sort of a middle ground, like, okay, maybe you're ready to sort of move on from the sort of ground level, Pines and Fairways townhouse experience, and are ready for something that's a little bit nicer, but not necessarily ready to buy a home. And I think that's an important part of the housing stock that I think needs to be taken into account here. And I just would like to point that out.
Randy, go ahead.
Well, I'm in agreement with David. I'm somewhat confused. I mean, we have a market rate. They're not asking for any TID money, and it clearly falls within the TID. we haven't asked the other side of Fish Hatchery to maintain that same type of standard. Now, that's only a couple hundred feet. If you go a couple hundred feet west, then you get into that neighborhood. I do not want Fish Hatchery to become that railroad. It's like the old saying, what side of the track do you live on? These are high-end, affordable, market rate, however you want to look at it, apartments, just like on the other side, Terrace Point. I don't believe, as David said, we're not asking this of anybody else within the city. I don't know how we can come down and say, you're going to be the ones that are going to afford that affordable housing. Would I like affordable housing? Absolutely. Would those brownstones, they would be ideal for condos, but if that's not what they're offering, I don't know how we can say no when we're not asking for the other developments on the east side of Fish Hatchery.
I might also, if I could just add something quick to that, I don't disagree with the aim of introducing affordability, of introducing ownership housing to this neighborhood. I think that this community, which is very likely the most diverse community in all of city of Fitchburg, it needs investments like that. It needs the ability to create more home ownership and more home equity. It does. So I don't necessarily disagree with that as a policy objective. I just don't think achieving that, or that being the goal, is best executed by, basically creating a barrier to this style of housing, which is then going to improve the neighborhood and make it that much more likely that homes and condos and other type of development could occur in the future. We've also indicated to city staff that, we do have other, I guess the city has a program, a pilot program that they're working on for maybe trying to kick off and subsidize some sort of rent-to-own townhome type product. And we'd be more than happy to talk to the city about that, and we've indicated some areas that we think that might be able to happen. So we're more than happy to have those conversations. It's not something that can be introduced into this development.
Emily?
I would echo a lot of what Randy said. I am concerned that there is going to be a dividing line, and we have a lot of beautiful developments that are on the other side of Fish Hatch. And it would be wonderful to see more of that on the other side. I do think that this development really fits the parcel of land really nicely. I think there's a nice interplay too with the hub, knowing that that's going to come. And I think of it as a way this project can help invest in the neighborhood and then bring that up a little bit more so that it's easier to find potential buyers for units in the future. I do think, it would be wonderful to add like some affordable elements to it as well, so that as the neighborhood gets more and more, I would say maybe elevated, or people aren't pushed out. That is a concern of mine, but I think this project is really beautiful, and I think it's well done.
I guess one of the concerns I have is, we talked about a lot of stuff, and it looks like nothing has been changed from 2 months ago except for the impervious surface. And there's other concerns as well. In fact, I'd say that this neighborhood is probably different than any other neighborhood in the city because it is so saturated with apartments right now. And when you look at property owners, it's pretty rare that we have a property owner that has more than just a lot. And I think that's where, even a couple months ago, I talked about the need for planning. My concern is that you even heard tonight, they do apartments. They can talk about, we'll talk about this and that, but that's not their business. That's not what they want to do. I don't see them doing any owner occupied elsewhere on this land that they own. They own quite a bit of land in this area. And so that's where, again, without any kind of planning and knowing oh, there is this coming down the line where I feel like we do need to take that stand and say, wait a minute, we're getting not even an acre more parkland in an area that needs a lot more parkland. It's an area that is all apartments on this side of the Fish Hatchery Road, and Fish Hatchery Road is a barrier there. You know, again, it's just adding more and more rentals in there, and they're nice rentals. It's a nice project, but is it really diversifying that neighborhood? And I don't see another neighborhood in the city like that. And I think as planners, when we're trying to create healthy neighborhoods, is putting more apartments in there making it a healthy neighborhood, or is it looking at it holistically and saying we need more than just more apartments, we need other types of property? And that's where, because they have a lot of land in this area without any kind of a plan or knowledge from a plan commission that, oh yeah, it's not going to happen in the next couple of years, but there is a plan over here to put in the owner-occupied piece. And yeah, that changes, I guess, it could change, but I guess for me, without any knowledge of that and understanding of where that's going to go, I would just think, okay, and then a couple of years they're going to come in and put another 180 apartment unit in here. Then they're going to come in and put another 180 apartments. Where are we making this a healthy neighborhood? You look at Allied Drive and what we did there, and we took out the rentals and we put in owner-occupied, and that neighborhood has changed dramatically for the better because of that. And that's where I look at, because they are a big property owner, they don't own one piece of land, we should have higher expectations for them. And that's where I'm not in favor of this as is, without any of the changes, without any of the things that we've talked about to help make this whole neighborhood better.
And if I could respond to the mayor's made it very clear from the get-go that he's opposed to this project from the very first time that we showed it to him. He's indicated to us that he wants to know when we're going to tear down the pines and the fairways.
That's not true at all, David. Do not spread. I have never said that. Do not spread lies. I did not say anything about when you're going to tear those down.
I'm not intending to spread lies. I'm just sharing what I heard from you, and there were 10 other people there at the meeting, including Chad Brecklin, that you shared that was your question. When are we going to see the buildings come down?
That's not what I said.
And the problem with that, and the problem with the planning exercise, is that it creates a lot of anxiety for our residents, right? I mean, these are people who are raising their families and living their lives and trying to make rent and do all the things that they need to do. And to show them plans that say, okay, yeah, we're going to tear your building down, just creates an enormous amount of stress in a community that just doesn't need any more stress. And I get what you're saying. I understand planning exercises can be helpful. We've done tons of them. Ask your planner. They have tons of planning. We've spent tens of thousands of dollars. I mean, I think one planning exercise cost us at least $20,000 that we've done over the last 15 years. You have them, right? You have all those plans that show what the potential is here. This project falls within that potential. To sit back and say that, like, for some reason that we can't proceed with this portion because we haven't shown when we're going to tear down the rest of the buildings and redevelop the entire area, it's not reasonable. And frankly, it's a barrier to housing for this neighborhood. And I'm surprised to hear it.
Stephen, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going to tie together what Randy had said and what the mayor had said. The reason for me of why this one sticks out is because of the planning that we were presented probably going on almost 3 years now, where we looked at the North Fish Hatchery Road corridor and what that master plan was. The one that's on the east side of Fish Hatchery fit well within that plan, and as we move north, and I said at the time when we approved that building, that next parcel to the north where there's standalone family homes right now, that will be the center of Fitchburg, and in those master plans, they talked about, we're not gonna just put in a 4-level unit there. Those should be Capitol views. We're going to develop that further to the east, make it go from rental to, condo to owner, single family. That whole plan was presented to us, and that particular on the dairy was well within that plan. To the west of Fish Hatchery, that plan called for it to be basically a same kind of thing, except for more focused on elderly care. going from standalone elder care to assisted living, nursing, into full palliative care on this entire property. So that's what we've kind of been presented as a city of like, hey, planners, think through this as we're redeveloping Fish Hatchery. And so that's where, that's what the plans were that were presented. Now, plans can change, but this to me is, we're going to put in this one parcel that doesn't really fit the whole, scheme of, an aging population, quite frankly. And so that was my concern, that, when we take a look back at when that strip mall comes to end of life, now we've got a brand new apartment complex here. What are we going to have to the east of it? What are we going to have to the north and west of it? Because we're getting to end of life in some of these areas, or, in the next 5, 10, 15 years anyway. Then what? Are we going to be developing around this apartment? Or are we going to say, well, we've approved it here, so now everything over here is just going to be apartments forever? And I have to make point about this fallacy in your logic that putting in more apartments, so, a family that's paying $1,000 today for their 2-bedroom can go here and pay $1,500, and somehow that's going to elevate them into a house anytime sooner. It's completely backwards. And the idea that more apartments make it easier for people to get into housing and to have owner-occupied and generational wealth, completely off the table. I just have to point that out.
Well, Stephen, I appreciate your comments. I disagree with you. I think the point you raise about the healthcare component or what have you is exactly the point that I'm making about plans, right? It's hard to predict where things are going and where the market is going to be. So planning exercises are only so good, right? There's only so much utility you can get out of them. And to be clear, just for everyone, we were not party to that particular plan. We've done lots of planning exercises with the city, including an enormous charrette back in 2010, which again, the planning department has all the plans for. But we weren't part of that. We didn't show a healthcare facility or anything of the sort. So I'm not sure where that's coming from. I disagree with you though in terms of well, for starters, I think that there's this idea that that you can't produce a healthy neighborhood with apartments, and I think that's mistaken. And I unfortunately I think that I don't know how many folks on Plan Commission are renters and how many are homeowners. But I think that there needs to be a little bit more thought about how people are really living their lives in this neighborhood and what opportunities they have and what they can do. And I agree with you. It might be, there might be some units that are, more expensive, but there might not. And it's an opportunity to create some more housing options for not just the people who are living there, but for people, all across Fitchburg. That's what this neighborhood needs, right? It needs more integration. It needs more opportunity. It needs more investment. And that's, that's how we feel.
Rich?
I live in a neighborhood that's probably more subsidized than most neighborhoods. I live in a district that's heavily subsidized. The fact that this is market rate makes a big impression on me. A healthy neighborhood, you don't get healthy neighborhood when you have such an island of poverty. If you have a mix in a neighborhood, you're going to have a much healthier area. I like the fact that it's market rate.
Zach, sorry, I sometimes miss you on screen. You don't have to say anything. I just want to make sure that I didn't miss your hand. I don't want to put you on the spot.
No. I appreciate it. I go back and forth on this because I see both sides of it. Generally speaking, I would love to see more owner occupied. I think that's a struggle for a lot of people, just in general, not even just in Fitchburg and in the Madison area. Housing is very expensive, and people who want to move up and out of renting, it can be a bit of a struggle. Is this the right one? I don't know. It doesn't feel like the right one to me initially, so I tend to lean towards more, agreeing with Randy on this one. So yeah, I do go back and forth on this one.
Ed?
So question for David, and maybe to propose kind of a middle ground on this. Is there any reason why you can't legally construct this project as a condominium so that all of the apartments are one condominium in each of the, the kind of the brownstone, the townhomes are also individual condominiums. You own them all. You control the condominium association. You don't have to sell those. You can decide that they're going to be rentals. But legally, you've created a condominium so that anytime that you want, when you think the market is there, you can sell these units. Now, for your bank that you're working with initially, you can start them all out as rentals. So there shouldn't be an issue with the financing if you do it that way. But you create that flexibility so that down the road, they can be sold if you start to feel like the market is there. If you start to feel like those units may be worth more as a condominium sale than they are as long-term rentals.
So again, it's a very interesting idea. A couple challenges with that. So one, obviously, and I don't know if any of you have ever worked on condominiums, but there's a lot of legwork and expense and legal expense that goes into creating different condominium, plats essentially. You have to do all the condo docs. You have to do all the separate platting for every single unit. So it's a pretty enormous undertaking. That I think would be a little bit challenging. On the other side too, you also have, and I think I mentioned this at the pre-application meeting, or maybe it was a different meeting, but in condominiums, they tend to steer towards having less amenity space because the folks who are buying the condominiums don't want to have the high maintenance associated with that space, whether it's the taxes or the insurance or just overall expense. In this project, there's a lot of amenities. There's a lot of really, really wonderful amenities. That outdoor plaza space, there's outdoor gathering space. We've got a really nice clubhouse, which you'll hopefully see at the SIP. It's going to be really, phenomenal space. Fitness center, club room, and that type of stuff, that expense load isn't what you would do for a condominium. A condominium is more akin to, like where you would have like a row of townhouses or something like that. So it's a little bit challenging. Now that said, both those points, said, I think we are designing the building in a way, and obviously the townhomes are going to be built in a way that they are self-sufficient, that they could stand alone. There's nothing to say that someone couldn't come in after the fact and create that condo plat. Obviously they're going to have separate, and Kirk and Bruce can talk about this separately, but, obviously they're going to be fire rated to be self-sufficient and stand on their own. So I think that's something that could happen in the future.
And it's something that has commonly happened in the past. In the 1990s, there was a large trend toward taking older apartment buildings and condoing them off. Now, whether that was a good idea at the time with some of those older buildings, you could argue. But the fact of the matter was, it wasn't difficult to do. It really isn't difficult to do.
Yeah, I agree. There are companies out there who at certain times in the market make their living off of condo conversions. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah.
I guess I would just feel better about this project if I knew that could very well be part of the future. And, otherwise we're a little bit at loggerheads. I don't know where we stand here. We've got some people who are opposed to the project. We've got some people who are in favor of it. Some of us that are kind of on the fence. I'm kind of looking for a reason or a way to get off the fence. And I would just feel really good knowing that there's some reasonable likelihood that down the road we can have a very simple conversion to owner, to owner occupancy without forcing you to sell them.
I don't think that's something that we can accommodate, going into this project. But like I said, we're intentionally designing the building to very easily accommodate that in the future.
I don't see additional hands. I guess there's a couple options. One is to deny, one is to approve. You could postpone. I guess by doing that, you're just hoping that they make other changes, but I don't see that happening. But still open to questions or comments otherwise.
So if this is approved, what happens with the parkland issue? That goes to council then to address? That's not a decision we have to make here?
No, so we would want to have that, I think, finalized as a part of the ADR discussion, because it ultimately gets finalized. It ultimately gets finalized with the subdivision improvement agreement that does get adopted by council. So we have a section specifically for parkland dedication. So it could be potentially handled at a later date. I think planning staff would expect, I think, the applicant to be working directly with alders and the mayor to determine whether or not this parkland credit option would move forward. If they want to dedicate any parkland, so, we have discussed with the applicant the possibility of dedicating some parkland adjacent to the High Line where the future hub project will be. That would have to be accomplished through a certified survey map. And we do allow that per our land division ordinance. You can dedicate parkland outside of the project boundaries. And we've done that in the past, and that's actually outlined in our ordinance. So that wouldn't necessarily be like a special exception. That would be accomplished through a certified survey map. And if they did want to apply that to this project, we would just ask that they do that before they apply for building permits, which could happen,
So there's not it's an issue, but it's not an issue that needs to be addressed or resolved.
Yeah, so from a planning perspective, if they are not dedicating parkland as a part of this proposal at this time, then we would treat it as a fee in lieu of land dedication project, and anything else would have to come separately.
Okay.
Other questions or comments? Or Randy, you look like you're ready to do some.
I'd like a motion to approve. Motion to approve rezone request RZ-2433-22.
Second.
Signed by Emily. Yep, we're going to do a roll call.
Okay, so we'll do a roll call vote. Udell?
Udell, yes.
Sorry, Udell. Heller?
No.
Billings?
Yes.
Richardson?
No.
Kinney?
No.
Yes.
Tate? Bourne?
Yes.
Okay, so the motion passes.
All right. Then we can move along to G.
Thank you.
Thank
G
you,
and
everyone.
H. Yep. G and H are the same project, and we've got a couple people here, Alan and Kevin, to tell us more. Looks like maybe someone else as well. A couple people to tell us what you got going on here.
Before we start, is this something that we saw like a year and a half ago?
Yeah, so they submitted a rezone application to rezone to the BP zoning district to eventually facilitate this project.
Okay, thank you. I couldn't remember if this was a repeat or.
Yeah, we get to see them a lot of times.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Alan Branch.
If you can hold the microphone at least, because then people are, yeah, if you don't speak on the microphone, Zach can't hear you online.
Again, I'm Alan Branch. I am Vice President of Workforce Development at the Boys and Girls Club of Dane County. Excited to be here. I understand most of you folks have a real good feel for what the project is, so I'm not going to talk a lot about that. But I do want to share with you how excited we are to be here. It's amazing to think this project has been talked about for almost 6 years. And to see where we are today is amazing. Just last week, the National Association of Builders and the Boys and Girls Clubs of America agreed to a partnership that's based on what's taking place right here in Madison, that they believe will impact communities around the country. This is special work that we're doing. We're so fortunate to be able to partner with such great companies in this community. So, like I said, I wasn't going to say a whole lot, but once you get me talking, I kind of tend to keep going. But I just want to express our excitement for being in front of the commission today and hope that you see the work that we're doing justifies moving forward and completing the project. And I'll turn it over to our partners from here.
All right. Thank you, Alan. Kevin Yesko with JSD Professional Services, serving as the site civil landscape consultant for the project. I will start off with just a brief presentation, and then I'll pass the mic over to Mallory with OPN on the architectural side of things. So, Lisa, if you do have that presentation. Perfect, thank you. So a little bit of context. So I've highlighted City Hall down on the lower right, and we are just off of Highway 151 on the west side of Fitchburg. And then just a little bit more zoomed in context, if you're familiar with the Thermo Fisher area, this site is actually an old Thermo Fisher building, again, right off of 151 on the east side, and more specifically, the Verona Frontage Road. So talking a bit about the existing property, it's about a 2-acre parcel. The building is actually built into the side of a hill, has a very utilitarian approach to it and look to it. Our goal with this project is to rehabilitate and revitalize that building, as well as place an addition on the south side of the building. We will also take out all of that parking you see here and try to maximize it. It's in pretty degrading shape. Do want to note the wood line to the south and west. We are looking to preserve that as much as possible. There are a lot of nice trees within it, and we're working with a great landscape team, a landscape company, who will try to revitalize that. A few existing photos. Again, very utilitarian look to this building, and interestingly crafted into the hillside. From north to south, you have about 15 feet of grade that I did just want to mention as well. So taking you a little bit deeper into the site plan, as mentioned, that parking to the east side of the building will be completely removed and replaced, but with a nice curved aesthetic to it. As you bring your eye up into the north, you will notice there is a fire access lane that brings us back out to Verona Frontage Road, which we have been working with Joe and his team at the fire department to make sure that they're okay with that. And then we look to the south of the building where that 5,000 square foot building addition is proposed. On top of that building addition, we will have a rooftop patio, and to the west of it, there will be another patio space that will be heavily used by boys and girls for major fundraising events, outdoor teaching opportunities, so on and so forth. So we're very excited about that portion of this development. And then also to the northeast of the building, you will see that we've built an outdoor activity area and learning space as a small amphitheater into the grade there. Diving a bit into the details on the landscape plan. So we do have four-sided architecture across this entire development, so it is a fairly healthy landscape plan. Very excited to bring some natural elements into this utilitarian look, and also a very modern look by our architectural team. So this one's been a lot of fun for our landscape architecture group. And then just a brief palette here of the final look. It's a bit of that modern architectural and site elements, but then really invigorating the site with that natural landscape plant palette, a lot of native grasses, flowering perennials, and active and both quiet spaces to enjoy. Now I will pass the mic over to Mallory with OPN Architects.
Can I use this? Yeah. Perfect. Hi, I'm Mallory Hepner with OPN Architects. So a little background on the function of the building, just in case you don't all know. The McKenzie Workforce Center is intended to be a trades education training center for anyone from middle school through high school. Thank you. it's the mask. So it's supporting outreach education efforts that Boys and Girls Club already does at a smaller scale, but with a much wider audience. And then it'll also be home to all of the administrative functions that help support those activities. So we are preserving as much of the existing building, completely gutting it, making it sustainable. We've got geothermal heat systems. We're super insulating it, replacing all the windows, really trying to showcase sustainability in the trades through this project. And when we get to the interior renderings, you'll see in the addition that we're doing, we're actually exposing all of those so the students can use the building as a learning resource. So the addition that you see here wraps around kind of the front of the building where there's currently a loading dock, and it's nestled into that hillside. As you enter in, you see material palette is really neutral to complement the existing building and not distract too much from it, but modern materials that speak to kind of the modernity of the trades that we're teaching. So the front there that you see that shows as a white material is actually kind of a frosted etched glass. So a really modern aesthetic, but kind of wrapping around that existing split level structure. And then on the far end, you see a large workshop space that's got a black metal panel. We are adding a little bit of brick, and we're trying to match the existing brick that's on the building and just change the proportion a bit. So this is looking in, there is one point of entry into the building, lots of emergency exits as needed, but really making it so every single visitor of this building, whether they're going to see the CEO or go to a class, they're all entering, interacting, really showcasing how this building's bringing together communities. The rooftop patio space here is intended to be a place where you can grab your lunch. It is intended to be used for students as an informal learning space, or if you want to go have a fun fundraiser event, they will probably be out on the roof. You can see on that pergola, we are incorporating solar panels as well. Anywhere we can tie in sustainability and the future of the trades, we're trying to do so. Interior of the building is gutted. It's down to the studs, basically, and rebuilding. You can see the exposed structure here, precast planks showing off the ductwork and sprinkler heads and really celebrating that on this lower level. And then the upper levels are really the administrative areas of the Boys and Girls Club, the workforce center, and also an entrepreneurial center. So they're intending to teach students about what a small business loan is and how to accumulate wealth. They've already got a lot of faculty from UW-Madison and Madison College that are going to teach entrepreneurial skills to the students. This is looking across that parking lot, seeing how kind of our addition wraps around that existing split-level prairie-style building. So complementing but offset, trying not to mimic, but to just be complementary to it. And at night, the frosted glass here is intended to kind of be a beacon and a light. The hours of the building are going to be longer than a traditional office building, so during the day, you're gonna have some staff there. Some of the staff are in school sites and they'll be popping in intermittently, but there will be some evening classes, renting out to other nonprofits if they wanna use the entrepreneurial center. So we wanted to make sure that the building is lively and active and safe and secure no matter what time of day. And that's the project. We do have floor plans if you need them here. Didn't know if you wanted to see those or not.
All right, staff report, please.
I think the applicant did a good job of providing an overview of the site plan modifications and the building itself. So just talk briefly a little bit more about the conditional use permit aspect of the request. So they are requesting a conditional use permit for an educational services use. So that encompasses this kind of vocational training school, essentially, so from a zoning perspective, what we consider it. And then we also, that conditional use permit specifically allows activities occurring outside of the building. So like in our zoning code, we just differentiate between educational services that are inside and outside. So this is what would allow the outdoor kind of, the outdoor patio space as well as the outdoor classroom space that they're showing on the site plan. So I think generally we didn't have any concerns with allowing those outdoor activities in this location. And then a little bit more about the operational aspect of it. So The application does say that they will have up to 50 employees. So this does, per the applicant, accommodate for some just future growth in the operations. And they expect that they would have kind of 32 employees working on site regularly. So this includes, I think that the teachers as well as then the nonprofit staff that have their offices on site. But they did want to note that they do have a remote work policy, so they won't have all of those staff on site every day at the same time. And that they will also have some staff, in addition to those 32, that just come kind of on an as-needed basis as support for the school. So in total, the building has occupancy for 176 students, but they wouldn't expect to have more than 100 students complete the program in the first year. And they're thinking they would have about 12 students per class. And I believe you have like 3 classroom spaces in the building. And that they are confident that they will continue to provide transportation for their students via their passenger vans, which is how they currently handle like transporting students for their programming. So the expectation is not that they will be having students park on site, and that would be handled through a passenger van system. So, and that, yes, they would be open, I believe the application says till 8 p.m.
Yeah.
Is that still accurate? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, so the hours are a little bit longer than your typical office building, but I think would be compatible with the use that they are proposing. And then staff recommendation is for approval, just the standard condition for a CUP, and then 7 conditions for the ADR.
All right, thank you. First, I need to open the public hearing. I don't have anyone from the public that is here to speak. So seeing none, I'll close the public hearing, but open up to questions or comments from Planning Commission. Ed, looks like you want to say something?
Sure. Yeah, just a question. The addition to the building, is that something that's going to be done immediately, or is that kind of part of the curriculum? Or have you thought of doing it that way?
We did think about it, and if you think you're gonna renovate your bedroom in your house, you're probably not going to once you move in. That was kind of the theory that we had. And they really want to hit the ground running and use it as a celebration for the students to get them excited and like not coming into kind of a ramshackle half-done building, but really being this like a showcase piece. Yeah. So that was the thought. We are specifically designing certain components that they can be used. So instead of making the mechanical room in the back, this hidden kind of dungeon space, we've actually specifically carved a window into it, and they're going to actually take the students through it and talk about how a geothermal system works. Same thing for some of the site elements, showcasing how different concrete is formed and really trying to use it as a learning resource. But we did have that conversation.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Randy.
Great project, no question about it. I'm just reading regarding parking stalls and the number of students and transported in passenger vans and so forth. Sounds like there's going to be quite a few students going through. Have you been in contact with Madison Metro regarding the bus schedule? There's a lot of rearranging of those routes, so I'm assuming that's on your checklist somewhere.
It is. We also, in addition to buses, the transit vans, B-Cycle has actually said that they'll put a station on the site if we can accommodate it. We have a lot of bike parking, and we're really close to the Cannonball Path, as well as their Allied Drive Club. So, yeah, there's going to be a lot of people coming and going in different routes. I don't know that the Madison Metro conversations progressed very far, but it started.
Yeah, I'm on one of those, the Madison Transportation and Policy Board is the regional rep, and I noticed some of those routes are disappearing, and I just don't know where this stands. So when I saw the number of students going through, I would just hope that there's a conversation going on with Madison Metro.
We'll be in touch, Randy.
Okay.
We have, if a bus route can be occupied here in a station, say on Verona Frontage Road, we have accounted for ADA accessibility off of that frontage road, regardless of the 15-foot of grade. So we were pretty proud of our team for doing that. It was tricky, but we made it work.
Good. Okay. All right. Great project.
Thank you.
Yeah, I guess I can just say I just love the project and love all the things you guys have been doing with this, and it looks like a great thing. It's going to be really a jewel for Fitchburg, so really excited to have this, continuing to go with this project.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's about time. My family was involved with the joint apprenticeship Joint Apprenticeship Commission in DC when I was growing up, and there was a lot of successes there, so I wish you well.
Well, we're excited about it. Like I said, the feedback that we got in Orlando this past week was phenomenal. You know, we are going to be a pilot. Everywhere where there's a Boys and Girls Club and an association, builders association in any community, we're going to be the pilot that the country focuses on to introduce skilled trades in a different way to the communities where those opportunities are. So we're very excited about it, and we're very fortunate to have such great partners in this community to help make it happen.
Stephen?
I would just echo everyone. We gave a lot of praise the last time you all were here because it is such a great project. And I also just have to mention how many times we see projects and we say, boy, I wish we could enforce that there has to be some solar panels on every new building. We wish we could have this. You guys nailed every one. Heating, cooling, solar panels, everything. So with that, I move to approve CU 2427-22 with the one condition as noted by staff.
Second.
Seconded by Emily. All in favor, say aye.
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 And opposed, nay. All right, that's approved. And the ADR?
Motion to approve it. ADR, I lost my number here. Too quick to judge here. Excuse me. ADR 5215 Verona Road.
Second.
Seconded by Emily. All in favor, say aye.
That's
Aye.
You got the 7
Oh,
conditions.
sorry, with conditions?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Let me back up. The 7 conditions.
All right, and you're
Second.
Emily, all right? All right. All in favor of approving with the conditions, say aye.
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 And opposed, nay. All right, that's approved. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Have a good night.
All right, now we got a few things here for this next project. We have Michael Thorson in council chambers here, and we got a number of people online as well. Michael, I'll let you kind of kick things off and give it to whoever you need to online.
Thanks, Mayor. All right, switching gears to those wonderful projects on the east side of North Fish Hatchery Road. We are here tonight to kind of walk you through the alterations and changes that have been kind of coordinated with city staff since we had this project approved by the council in November for the PDD-GIP. It's substantially similar as a project. I'll go through in as much detail as you want, but I'll give a high level, turn it over to our architects who we have online, Brian Wolf, Matt Schreiner, and Jonathan Lilly from our engineers, Andrew Chitwood, also from our architects, and my business partner, Ned Hoyt, also online. I'm sure there's going to be a spirited discussion again about kind of ownership, multifamily, market rate, and all of that. Happy to give you my thoughts on that later if it does come up as a topic. I do have some things, I have some thoughts about what drives some of those different dynamics. But to our project, if we could have some sort of, do we have the SIP?
Yeah, we're pulling it up.
Yeah, and just as a point of clarification, the first item on the agenda is the certified survey map.
Oh, great. Matt Schreiner will be able to take you through the certified survey map. Or Jonathan, I guess. Who appears to be on mute.
I think if you're talking, you're on mute. There you go.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Yep.
Yeah, so we are looking at preparing essentially a one-lot CSM for the development that you see there. There are 3 remnant parcels that we're preparing outlots for. That will be, outlot 3 will be for stormwater management. It's currently being used that way, but we're adjusting the boundaries of it. And then, as you can see, Ocala Drive there will extend to the east, and we're dedicating right away for that extension of Ocala over to Index. I'm happy to answer any other questions about CSM.
All right. We can do this one quick if you want to just do a report on this one for staff, please.
Yep, I'll just give a quick staff report. So, yep, it's the 2 remnant parcels from when Ochala Drive was extended, and then Outlot 3, there's actually already an existing stormwater pond there, which takes water from Ochala and Fish Hatchery Road. And then just one point of clarification, I think you'll see here that the right-of-way sort of has an irregular shape, which is more a result of the transportation plat that was approved for the Fish Hatchery Road reconstruction project. And initially, we were going to vacate this right-of-way and join it to Outlot 3. But in speaking with the city attorney and the director of public works, that's actually not required, and it creates quite a bit of work for city staff to facilitate a vacation. So we just decided it was more efficient to keep the right-of-way in place, and it's still city property, similar to the stormwater pond, which is also owned by the city directly adjacent to it. And then staff recommendation is for approval with 6 conditions.
All right, any questions just on the CS? Ed?
Lisa, what is the potential purpose or use of outlots 1 and 2?
Yeah, so it's, I guess it wasn't ideal, let's say, to create these little remnant parcels. I mean, they are adjacent to existing development, so potentially in the future, maybe they could be combined with the adjacent lots as a part of a redevelopment. But right now, they're just owned by the city, and we're sort of left over. In order for the city to be able to put in Ochala Drive, they had to purchase, I think, all this property from the property owner at the time.
Okay, so we would look to potentially incorporate that into future development on other lots if something works out with those landowners.
Yeah, I guess ultimately it would be the decision for council that's there at the time.
Okay, great, thanks.
Anything else on the CSM? Or a motion?
I'll move approval of certified survey map 2428-22 with the 6 conditions as noted by staff.
Second.
Seconded by Randy. All in favor, say aye.
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 And opposed, nay. All right, that one's approved. Now we got the rezone request. If you want, Michael, you want to speak to that piece?
Am I back on?
Yeah, I think so.
So, correct. So we're looking for a PDD-SIP rezoning implementation here. Substantially similar to what was recently approved in the GIP version, along with some design progression and some more development of the exterior finishes and the look of the project. General overview of the project is we're proposing 170 units of market rate apartments from studios to 3 bedrooms with about 10,500 square feet of commercial. It's roughly a rectangular L-shaped building with a smaller kind of green roof over covered parking with about 226 covered parking stalls. And then in the front, on the west, when I say front, as you look from Fish Hatchery Road out the front of the property will be about 10,500 square feet of commercial space with two levels of height, but just 1 level of actual usable space. We do have about 50 stalls of surface parking as well, most of which would be dedicated to the commercial uses of the apartment building. We have a significant amount of underground parking for this in terms of our coverage, which gets us more than 1-to-1 per unit that is covered. It's the first time we've had a development where we've been able to achieve that with covered. Obviously, it's Wisconsin. Covered parking is highly preferred. So we did a few unique things in the design process, which has allowed us to do that. And we do have a ratio which is close to 1.5. I think it's 1.45 per unit, which is, again, also higher than any of the other developments that we've previously done. And this will be our 6th project that we've either led or co-developed or been a partner with in the greater Madison area. The let's see, amenities will be very typical for the types of luxury buildings that we create. There will be a club room that leads out onto the green roof. There will be a leasing office on site, a yoga room and fitness room. This project, we have the kind of luxury of having another space on the third floor, which will be another club room space that goes out and then has a rooftop terrace over the commercial space overlooking Fish Hatchery to the west. We believe that this project is consistent with both the vision of the city and the mayor for the North Fish Hatchery Road redevelopment. We believe that this is going to lead to significant momentum in terms of creating that urban core feeling that is going to be a gateway for this. Starting off, we all know there's the Fish Hatchery Road had the ribbon cutting after the remodeling of that road, or renovation of that road over the last couple of years. And you're already seeing a tremendous amount of development coming in to kind of raise that area's prominence as a gateway for Fitchburg. It is the last major corridor from the outskirts into the Madison metro area that hasn't had that type of development. We as a developer feel this is a wonderful opportunity to bring that level that you've seen on University Avenue, you've seen on East Washington, all coming, and Park Street going into downtown. Well, Fish Hatchery Road, we believe, is going to be somewhere 5-10 years from now. I'm going to leave that for the kind of general overview. We're going to move on. I will then state once again, we do have a developer's agreement to build that road, a TIF agreement, Oshala, for the city at cost. So whatever it costs us to build it, we have agreed to get reimbursed to do that, which we do think then opens up quite a bit of opportunity to the east for other developments down the road in the future that we are also examining already. I'm going to stop there, turn it over to Brian Wolf to talk a little bit about his exterior finishes and the progression that he's done with that.
Thank you, Michael. It's a great overview. So I'll start by saying that this building is simple in composition and materiality. We're sticking kind of to the classics, not necessarily timeless, but maybe perhaps trendless to withstand the test of time. We have kind of a base middle top where the base is a heftier masonry. Then above that, we have more of a linear horizontal brick material. That's kind of a cream mid-tone masonry accented by bronze metal panel mullions and railings within the balcony. There you go, it's a good shot of it. It's a manufactured brick veneer. The insets within the balconies help break the composition down with the composite finished panel, the gray one, and then the tan one that you see we're using specifically at entries and within the commercial area. So as we flip through the elevations, you'll get a good idea of the tonal shifts as we flip to something more of a public entry versus a private balcony. Great. There we go. So the commercial you see kind of on your lower left with small canopies over the entries, taller windows as we have a taller space. And then we have that lighter composite finish on a type 2 here, specifically at the commercial, just to give it a little bit more relief from the larger building in terms of a color and tone. And as we flip around, I think is the next page. That's the east elevation indicating the separate entries into that commercial space. Since it's speculative, those entries are indicating just an entry to a certain zone within the building. And then the signage, obviously on the canopy, it's all vertical signage on the south side, as you see on the left side of that northwest elevation, and on the right side of the west elevation. And then as we're using the larger masonry stone. You can keep going, I guess, to the perspectives. It's a better. As we hit grade, either below grade or shortly just above grade, just to use it as a plant to ground the composition of the building. It's a good south elevation. The entry's kind of center. Yeah, we can keep going. There's a nice perspective as we come to the main entry of the building. We can see the lower entry on the right, commercial space kind of in our background. Here's a good image indicating the difference in the horizontal brick with the kind of split face, more rugged stone at the base. And then a view of the west side as you come down the entry into the lower part of the building. I think that was the end of that perspectives, yeah. So I'm happy to answer any questions, or we can continue to go.
Yeah, we can do a staff report for the rezoning request and ADR and then open up to questions from the commission.
Sure. So generally, the SIP and the ADR are consistent with the GIP that was approved previously. There's still the 10,450 square feet of commercial space, 170 units. There's the 56 surface stalls, as they noted, with 30 of those being reserved for the commercial use. So they're meeting the kind of city standard for one space per 300 square feet of residential the memo says residential use, but that should say retail. So apologies for that. So that's the standard, just one space for 300 square feet for retail. And then they'll have a parking ratio of 1.45 stalls, which is pretty similar to what we've seen with other PDD projects. I think one thing that, and I believe that the applicant will be commenting on this as well. So the recommendation is for approval for the rezone as drafted in the PDD SIP ordinance enclosed in the packet. And then recommendation is also for approval of the ADR with 5 conditions. And I did just want to note one condition that is not standard, that the staff recommendation is that the applicant shall remove the proposed dog play area and provide updated plans for approval by the city planner. So I just want to pull up the site plan. It might take me a minute just to pull it up. So excuse me. But basically on the east side of the building along Index Road, they are showing a dog play area here where there's also a stormwater facility. So it's in this area. And the Director of Public Works has stated that a dog play area is not an appropriate use to be located within a stormwater facility. Try to pull up an exhibit that shows it a little bit better. So for example, here's the basin, and they would like to also install this dog run area with fencing from the wall of the apartment to the property line and around. So the basin would be enclosed by fencing, and there would be dogs using that space. So per the Director of Public Works, that's just not appropriate in a stormwater facility. And I think as planning staff, just generally have concerns with locating this dog run. So this site plan doesn't show it, but there are also 5 outdoor balconies for residents just directly adjacent and essentially in the dog run area. So just have concerns with the mix of the residential with the proximity to the dog run. And so from a planning perspective as well as a public works perspective, we would ask that the applicant remove the dog run space and provide updated plans for the city planner. So I can let the applicant speak to this a little bit more as well.
Lisa or Mayor Richardson, we'd like an opportunity to discuss the issue, and we do have some of our engineers and others here to specifically speak to that. I don't know if now is an appropriate time or there's a better time or mechanism for that.
If it's going to be a discussion, then we should just probably do the public hearing probably really quick
Okay, first, sure.
So why don't I just do that? I mean, there's no one here
Yeah,
from the
that was
public.
the
So.
end of the staff report.
Okay, good.
Yep.
All right, I'll first open up the public hearing real quick. I don't have anyone from the public here to speak to that, so I can close that. But then if Ned or someone would like to speak to the dog run piece, you can do that, please.
So our view on this is that, so first, we are not aware of any real laws or regulations or rules that say you cannot do this. And when we first got this back from the staff, we asked, well, we do believe it's appropriate. We're not aware of any reason why it wouldn't be, and asked them to, explain why they don't think it's appropriate. And then the response was simply, we still don't think it's appropriate. So we would like to actually have a dialogue of why there seems to be some sort of antipathy, because if it's an issue with the infiltration basin, if there's an expectation that it's going to get torn up or it's going to get padded down, we could certainly work into a stormwater development agreement, an agreement to maintain and repair and create. The simple fact is going to be, this is where our tenants are going to go take their dogs, regardless of if it's a dedicated dog run area or not a dedicated dog run area. That's where they're going to take them. So from our standpoint, we do believe that, it says recreation area. There's a gradual slope on it and stuff. It's not like owners and people are going to be recreating in there. It will be a bunch of dogs running around in a contained area, going to the bathroom, coming back in. We do believe it's a safer sort of environment for them if we enclose that and keep them away from the public or the sidewalks. And if it's an issue, you can see how the balconies where the fence line would be. Those balconies are actually, tell me, 9 feet, 10 feet back. So, we don't believe that that would be any type of safety issue for those tenants. So we're really looking for guidance on what the actual concerns were, and they haven't been relayed to us. So on why that would not be an appropriate area to have a dog run.
Yeah, I don't think.
Yeah, I can provide additional staff comment. So, yeah, generally, the Director of Public Works just said that you should not have dogs running around in a stormwater facility, and exactly like the vegetation, the infiltration facilities. And we also don't want, there's just gonna be, waste, like dog waste going into the stormwater facility, which is not the intent of how a stormwater facility is supposed to operate. And so there's just general concerns about long-term maintenance of a facility like that. And I will continue, I stand by my comments from a planning perspective that it's not a safety concern for the adjacent residents. It's like a noise and for the residents that are located just right next to that facility. And I think if you wanted to provide a dog play area on site, it could have been accommodated in other locations rather than being sort of shunted to the east side of the site, and it's going to be not even a foot away from a sidewalk and the city right of way.
So is there, if the concern is the waste issue, so typically these dog areas will have bags for the dogs, the owners to kind of collect the waste and all that. What will happen if this is not a dog run area is they will just go out there anyway, and may not have bags because we won't have a bag stand or anything right there available for them. And if it's a maintenance issue, as I said, we would certainly welcome kind of putting into a stormwater maintenance agreement some language concerning that type of maintenance. We really struggle to find a place to put the dogs in when a quarter of our site became a road for the city to go through to Oshawa. Not that I'm disagreeing with the Oshel Drive, and we are happy to kind of build it on behalf of the city. However, it became a compression of our site. If there were other, if there were other means, if we created an area that took a fence around that infiltration basin, is that something we could do, and then just leave the two separate areas? I mean, our belief is we thought we would be able to have a dialogue on this. No one came back to us until your comments tonight, Lisa, on what the actual issues were. So from our standpoint, we don't believe it's settled. We do believe it's an appropriate place to put that. I don't think we're going to say, hey, the project's off if we don't get our dog run, obviously, but, you know, we would like to have a conversation about that.
And I think from a plan commission perspective, it's hard for us to sit here and say, do one thing or the other, because maybe there, you know, a fence around the infiltration piece, or there might be options. I don't know that. So I think from a plan commission perspective, I don't know how easy it is for us to say one way or the other. But maybe it's working with staff to provide a solution to the dog play area or something like that. I don't know what would be appropriate.
We'd love to work with you to see if there's some sort of solution that everyone would be happy with.
Lisa, can you show the site plan again? I mean, just as far as what other, if any, options there would be for that. I mean, this is a more common amenity that people are looking for in apartments, and I understand the desire to have it there. I am somewhat perplexed by why it's such a big problem, but maybe there's...
I think on the other side of the building is where the retail is, so maybe there's concern about conflict with the retail area on the other side of the building. I'm just speculating though.
Yeah.
Can
Steven?
somebody explain? I'm more confused by what is the purpose of this right now at stormwater, because we have this huge retention pond to the west. So
Yeah.
if this was just grass on the side of the apartment, we wouldn't have anything to say, but because it's meant for, is it
Stormwater, yeah.
stormwater management?
Yeah, so they have to provide a certain amount of stormwater for the project itself, that they have to accommodate, like the runoff. So I guess their engineer could probably speak to the mechanics of an infiltration basin better. But the Director of Public Works has noted that, yes, they're correct. There is no ordinance that says you cannot have a dog area in your stormwater facility. He just does not think that it's a best practice, and that's why he said to remove it from a Public Works perspective. And then, again, my opinion as a planning staff is that it's not an ideal location for a dog play area, but that is, I guess, up for interpretation and discussion as well. And if Planning Commission can disagree with Director of Public Works and planning staff and have them keep the dog play area as well, that's certainly acceptable. Just that as city staff, we would express our concerns, and then Planning Commission can make the final determination. And if we want to say fence out the basin, perhaps, maybe that would satisfy some of the Director of Public Works concerns, but I'm just hesitant to leave it up to a staff approval, because what if staff continue to disagree with the applicant about what is and is not appropriate? I think staff have expressed their concerns.
I think that's fair. I think it's also a challenge for us, especially because Public Works isn't here right now to know what he'd be okay with and not okay with. And I don't know the best way to handle that. You can think about that for a second, and I guess open up to other questions or comments and come back to it right now. But I think that's my concern, is that, I mean, obviously we can postpone it, but then this is another month before we can approve it. I'm sure that there's other things that they have an early start permit is the next thing on the agenda. But obviously I understand, I don't want to necessarily put staff in that position of, you know, if it can't come to an agreement, then what happens there? And maybe that piece alone can come back, but something to think about, and that can open up to discussion about other things and come back to it as well. Yeah. Stephen, do you have
that stormwater basin, does that need to be adjacent to the building?
Perhaps the applicant's engineer could comment on the location.
Yeah, so, thank you. Matt Schreider with Beer Associates. So the stormwater basin on the east side of the building is an infiltration basin. So that's taking clean runoff from the roof and infiltrating it. We actually have really good infiltrative soils on that side of the building. And as Ned mentioned, we haven't had a chance to have a more in-depth dialogue with Bill and staff on the concern, but I'm guessing usually what we see and when we design these things, the concern is that these areas can be compacted. And if you have the area, eventually be compacted by, heavy equipment or traffic, it ends up not infiltrating, and then it holds water and it becomes an issue, and it doesn't function the way it was designed. So, what we do is when we design these things, look at the native soils, and we design it in a way to make sure it's going to promote infiltration. But then beyond that, we go back out and actually certify that it was built per plan when the project's done. And, that ensures that you're getting what the design was intended for. And I haven't talked to Bill on this. I'm guessing the concern is that if we have, people or dogs walking on top of that surface of the infiltration basin, kind of the bottom of the depression there that infiltrates, that could eventually compact some of the soil, and then, it would prevent it from infiltrating. And what Mike suggested is, putting something in the maintenance agreement that says, if that ever were to happen, there's an inspection routine that happens out here every year. Someone looks at it and makes sure it's functioning properly. If it's not, the developer would come back and fix it. And in that maintenance agreement, I think the city's standard language says, if the developer doesn't correct it, the city could come in and do that and special assess the property for any of the costs. So I think there are some protections there to make sure it functions properly. I'll agree, having, that area have a function for some kind of recreational use as well as infiltration. It's probably not standard, but I guess, as long as there are protections in place to ensure it functions the way it's designed to, I guess I don't see major issues with, dogs compacting the soil, but, I think we'd love the opportunity to talk further with staff on this. And, if the condition can be that, the dog run area is subject to, staff approval. And maybe that means the bottom of the infiltration basin is fenced off so dogs can't go there, but the sides where we're not infiltrating can be used. We'd be happy to have an opportunity to work with staff on what can or can't be allowed there.
And I don't want to speak for staff, but I'm an elected official, so I'm an expert on everything. I could imagine just also concerns with possibly any vegetation getting torn, kind of ripped up and becoming muddy, and then you're not getting the benefits. There could be more erosion. I could see that as possibly a concern as well. But it seems like that I don't think you need to that piece solved necessarily before you start. And I don't know if that's something where it can be work with staff. If no agreement can be reached, that piece comes back to the planning commission possibly. I don't know if that's a possibility or not, if you're comfortable with that, Lisa, but I could see maybe something like that.
Yeah, I think we
Or
could.
maybe I should say Deanna, since you're the one that'll have to deal with it.
I think that you could amend that condition and change it to, dog play area subject to like staff approval. And then let's say if staff denies it and the applicant disagrees, they could come back with an ADR that shows the dog play area. Or perhaps we come to a solution.
Some kind of appeal to the planning commission. Or...
Yeah, they could probably just resubmit it. Yeah.
All right. Ed.
On that, there's a infiltration area in the city's dog park on Irish Lane. I don't know whether that's fenced off, though, from where the dogs are able to go or not, but how is that different? I don't know. So maybe that's something that Bill can take a look at, too. I mean, maybe that's not part of the fenced-in area where the dogs can go there. I don't know. But it's definitely designed with an infiltration area.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like there are outstanding questions, and perhaps there could be better dialogue with city staff and the applicant to see if we can come up with a solution.
All right. Questions, comments about this or other parts of the project? Stephen?
One other question that I had was, you've got the commercial space, looks a lot like what you have at Terrace Point. I've noticed that those are not filled yet, so I'm curious if you have any kind of idea of what the hunger is there for commercial in that area.
Yeah,
Or what
au
you can see.
contraire, I should say.
Oh.
So we took 3 years to fill 11,500 square feet at our previous project at Garver Point. We just leased out the last 3,000 square feet. We will soon be starting the build-out on the entire south commercial part of Terrace Point, and that will be completely full. So the 5,000 so square feet, and now I'm cheating a little bit because part of it is we are moving our offices there. We do not have, we expect to have, or expected to have a hospitality, some sort, restaurant, bar, grill, or whatever in that north part. I think times are challenging still for that, so we don't have prospects for that. But I believe, as we see the pandemic continuing to wane, that the hospitality industry will start coming back. And we have seen interest from groups outside of the area coming into the greater Madison area that we haven't seen before. So we're not particularly worried about that, and we build into our pro formas those commercial spaces are 25% empty year one, 50% empty year two, 75, so we build in an expected period, prolonged period of time that we expect them to take to lease up. This particular space, again, we're not afraid of commercial. None of these projects ever rest on the commercial component of them. But we do believe that the commercial components can generally turn out to be amenities for our tenants and for the rest of the community. So we do like to include them in the mixed-use projects. So for example, at Garver Point, there is a private physician's office, there is a wine and design studio, there's a wellness studio, and there is a virtual reality bar and grill, and our tenants all love that. Just took a while.
Anyone else? Either one, either rezone or ADR.
I have a question on the ADR. What's the manufactured stone panels or brick panels, veneers? Do you use that in any of the other projects?
We have not. The reason we have not is it's so expensive. This is the highest costing per square foot exterior finishes that we've done on any art. So if the question you're asking, is it like those hardy panels?
Well, I'm thinking
it is
like
not.
the old Z brick from 50 years ago or whatever.
No, this
I mean,
is this is a very high-end fiber
the Air
cement.
Craft, right?
Yes, these are extremely nice finishes.
Okay.
Rainey.
With that said, are you saying that this building is going to be even nicer than Terrace Point?
The exterior finishes will be nicer.
Okay,
Yes,
the exterior.
correct. They are significantly more expensive.
I only ask and put you on the spot because Terrace Point is a beautiful building.
Right, I know. Well, this was a specific request by the city that they wanted to see some very long-term sustainable stone, concrete, masonry, and okay. Well, now that we're regretting so quickly rolling over on that one, because I think if anyone has looked at the cost of constructions, our construction costs have gone up almost 6% in 6 weeks. And they're 22% higher than Terrace Point was. Just, put shovels in the ground on that 2 years ago.
Right.
So just with a brick veneer like this, how do you back drain that?
Is VUCA brought on the?
I've just heard of that being issues in other buildings.
So we have. It's a great question. I won't pretend that I know the answer to it, but what I can say is that we have used similar materials in other buildings. We've not had issues with that per se. So we are using the same general contractor that we have on our previous projects, so we're comfortable that they'll be able to figure that out. We're just simply using more of those materials to cover a great amount of the area. In previous buildings, we would have 30% of it would be brick and masonry, 30% would be composite metal panel, 30% would be hardy of some sort, so varying levels of expense. This one is 100% all of the expensive materials.
I've just heard of situations where people, of course, assume that the water is not going to get behind there, and then it always actually does. And then it's
Yeah,
a matter of how it gets back out.
I kind of know a little bit about what you're talking about. Again, I'm not a construction expert, but
I'm just raising the issue because I've seen the issue come up before, and I'm sure you guys will.
we had that issue actually at Garver Point initially during the construction phases, and they had to go back and change the flashing and correct it. So
Okay.
there are fixes. There are easier fixes when the building's not complete, but yeah.
Yeah.
So
And I'm assuming then, despite the pontification of how expensive it is, it's still cheaper than actual masonry?
no, it is actual masonry. These things are a masonry product.
Oh,
Brick,
okay.
yeah.
Sorry, I misunderstood then, I guess, what the product is.
Want to do a motion at all on at least the rezone request?
I guess I will note one thing as well. So with I know, surprise, focusing so much on the dog play area, but so for other apartments that aren't in PDD zoning, a dog play area does require a conditional use permit. So we did have a PDD amendment come in recently to allow a dog play area in the apartments in the Fahey Fields neighborhood. So if they do allow the dog play area in the future, like if we can come to an agreement, then the PDD SIP will have to be amended to include that as a permitted use, just to be consistent with what we've done with other projects, both PDD and not PDD. So that would then also have to come forward as like a minor PDD amendment, or technically a rezone, because it needs to be included as a use.
Noted. Yep.
So, I mean, it might be easier to amend the ordinance. I don't know. It's kind of complicated. I think it's going to create some procedural issues and additional application costs for you guys if you have to come back.
Is it possible to approve it with the dog run included, but to specify the condition being that the, exact location, scope, amenity of the dog park area will, receive staff approval prior to implementation, and that way it doesn't require rezoning, but without the actual staff approval, it can't actually be implemented?
Yeah, so I think, and Deanna, feel free to provide insight, is that you could list it as a permitted, amend the PDD SIP ordinance in the packet tonight to include a dog play area as a permitted use, but if it's not shown on the approved architectural design review, then correct, you wouldn't be able to install or allow that on site. So that could be a workaround.
Okay, so you would like us to approve with the modification of adding a dog run area as a permitted use?
If Plan Commission would like to amend it, then you can do so.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Someone want to take a crack at doing a motion?
I've been pretty hot tonight, let me go at it. I move to approve rezone request RZ, right, or do we need, RZ 2431-22 with the permission of a dog run included in that rezone request, with the 10 conditions as noted by staff, with number 4 to be amended.
The ADR is the conditions.
Oh, thank you, perfect, then never mind, I was gonna take it all at once.
I'll second.
All right, so the motion and seconded by Rich is to approve with the dog run as a permitted use. All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And opposed, nay? All right. And now we've got the ADR. So, Stephen, you said you're high. You want to do this one with the?
Yeah, so I was ready to go. I'll move to approve ADR for Ochala Drive with the 10 conditions as noted by staff, with number 4 to be amended, that city staff and applicant come to an agreement
I can recommend some language if you'd like.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think we could say that the condition number 4 could be amended to read that the proposed dog play area shall be approved by city planner and director of public works. If not approved by staff, shall require ADR approval by plan commission.
Are you okay with that?
Sounds good to me.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Randy. All right. All in favor of approving the ADR with the conditions, say aye.
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 And opposed, nay. All right, that's approved. And then one last thing, you have a early issuance of permits request. Anything you want to speak additionally on that, Michael?
We'd like to start early.
Oh, all right.
We have a very kind of tight timeline on this. It is a dense project, and we would like to hit the leasing season in May or at latest June of 2023. So at your pleasure, we would like to start early.
All right. Staff report?
Yeah, so I think we're all familiar with these requests. So this would be to allow construction of the building before Oshala Drive is completed. So they'll be doing those sort of in conjunction, if I understand that correctly. So this will just ensure that the road actually gets installed, then you're not left with an apartment that doesn't have right-of-way access. So one of those instances where early issuance of permits is required. We have the standard conditions of approval, which is 8 conditions, including the early start agreement that they'll provide for the city.
Any questions or comments? Or a motion? Someone wants to do a motion? Randy, you look like you're ready.
Sure. Motion to approve early issuance of permits for Ocala Drive with the 8 conditions as noted.
Second.
Seconded by Rich. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, nay. All right, that is also approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. One last item, resolution R2422. And do you want Samantha to go first, or she's been hanging out patiently
she
online
here for
for it?
this
Well,
item?
oh, she might be asleep, but she is online. Samantha, are you there? No, maybe not. If you are, you're on mute if you're trying to talk. Probably watching the Badger basketball game right now. All right. Well, why don't you go ahead, I guess, with
Sure.
staff.
I'm not used to having applicants for the TPP, so apologize to Samantha. Yeah, so Plan Commission, oh, maybe she's back, no. Okay, so Plan Commission approves the transportation project plats, and this is for the reconstruction of Sain Road and Aurora Avenue to McCoy Road, so part of that expected Sain Road reconstruction project that is occurring. I can go over some of the details of the TPP if you would like. Otherwise, recommendation would be for approval.
All right. Oh, looks like we lost her. Maybe she had to gonna try and sign back in. So, all right. Any questions or comments at all, Rich?
Transit approved this Thursday,
Oh, great.
so
Okay.
TTC.
Do they have any questions or concerns? Okay. Good.
Was there something in the packet that shows where it's being done?
Yeah,
I'm thinking of that area south of Lacey Road that didn't get done with this last improvement.
By the Addison, right?
That's kind of, yeah.
It's essentially
pretty rough.
the Addison.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether that's part of this project or not.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Aurora Drive is where the Addison is.
Oh, that is,
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's there north.
and then north to McCoy.
all the way to McCoy.
Yeah,
Perfect,
so it'll be where the Quick Trip project is, where Uptown Crossing is, that
I'm in
area.
favor then.
Okay.
And it is.
All I needed to hear.
Drive it.
It is going to be split up into. It is going to be split up into 2 different years, though. Unfortunately, Aurora to between, essentially just north of the Quick Trip is going to be this year, and then where McCoy turns into Sain, that is going to actually be in 2 years. We did get a grant from the state to make that intersection safer. And so it saved the city a lot of money, which is good. But just because of the timing, we had to wait on that. And they wanted to wait 2 years because of some other projects happening. I can't remember now off the top of my head. But they will actually have already started some design already on that. And McCoy will actually tee on Sain Road is what they're thinking, to try and make that safer so that it's also safer for where the bike path crosses as well. I believe there's going to be a light there as well. And so you'll actually be stopping traffic and you won't have the people turning right without slowing down and possibly hitting bikers, which has happened, unfortunately. So anyway, that's a little bit more on the project itself. If there's any other questions or comments? I agree that it needs to be redone.
Yeah, that's an interesting idea. So McCoy is going to tee into Sain. So basically, Sain is kind of going to be back where it used to be.
Yeah.
Yep.
A long time ago.
Removing that curve.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Huh, interesting. Cool. I'll move approval of resolution.
Hold on, we got
What is
Samantha's
it?
coming back.
Coming
Well,
back.
Samantha's coming back, so we'll give her a second maybe.
Oh, she is.
I think, I don't know if it's this year or next year, we're also putting in the lights at McCoy and MM. That's something we got approved as well and making that intersection safer as well.
Yep.
Hey, there's Samantha.
Weren't those put in?
What's that?
The lights at McCoy?
So we're putting lights at McCoy where it tees into MM.
Yeah, didn't they put lights in? Like,
There was temporary lights
temporary.
during the
oh,
construction.
they were just temporary.
And they didn't let us do the real lights at the same time. They made us do temporary. Now those are gone, and then we're gonna do permanent lights. But we're also changing where the bike path is crossing right there as well to make it safer. So that's a piece of that as well.
So as you're going north then on MM, is the left lane going to be a turning lane only? Because when it was temporary, it wasn't, and that was a problem.
Yeah, I believe we are taking that down to 1 lane and a turn lane.
When is it
Remind me
turn
of that.
lane only, then
Yeah.
the through lane is the right lane?
I think something like that.
Yep.
All right, we're way off track. Samantha, sorry, I don't know if there's anything additional you'd like to add on this TPP or not. Okay.
No, I'm so sorry. Internet problems, of course. It was totally fine up until I unmuted. I just wanted to be available in case there's any questions on the Sain Road plat, any questions about the project itself or the plat. Just here to answer questions.
Okay, yeah, I've been provided a little bit. I think everyone agrees that it needs to be redone and they're excited about the projects.
Good.
All right, I don't think there's anything additional, so if there's anything, if someone wants to do a motion, that'd be great.
I move to approve R24-22.
Second.
Signed by Randy. All in favor, say aye.
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 And opposed, nay. All right, that's approved. Thank you, Samantha. All right, report from the department. First, Deanna, would you like to introduce yourself? Tell us some more about yourself.
Sure thing. So, my name is Deanna Schmidt, and I'm the new city planner and zoning administrator. I'm very happy to be here. I am coming from Texas. I was the planning director in Pasadena, Texas, and that's a city just outside of Houston. It's a suburb of Houston. And, but my background is I was born and raised in Albany. I don't know if any of you know Albany, but Albany is just directly to the south. I did my undergraduate work here at UW-Madison and my graduate work at UW-Milwaukee. So I'm coming home, and I'm very happy to be here, and I'm very happy to work with each one of you. So thank you.
Any questions?
You got your PhD at Clates?
No, but you won't. Oh,
You don't have
That's
to.
a post-meeting conversation, it sounds like. And also, unfortunately, we're excited to have Deanna on board, but this is Lisa's last meeting, so sad to see you go, but best of luck to you, and you're still in the area, so hopefully we'll see you around.
I think I'll still be around, yes.
All right, excellent. Any other announcements at all? All right, seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Moved by Randy and seconded by Steven?
Yep.
All right. All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, we are adjourned.